Hi, this is Julie Levinsky. I am the Digital Director for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our host today. His name is Michael Sanders. He's the Director of Marketing and Communications for NTI, a nonprofit focused on placing Americans with disabilities and disabled veterans in call center, customer service, and IT help desk jobs that can be done from home. And we're lucky to have him here today. He's going to be talking to you about reentering the workforce after disability. So now I'm going to turn it over to Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you doing? Thank you so much, Julie. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to extend a special thank you to the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation and the Administration for Community Living for having NTI here today to talk about a very important subject, which is transitioning into the workplace after injury. And not only does work provide income, health insurance, and other benefits, it's also beneficial to an individual's overall well-being. So we're going to be talking over the next 45 minutes about the common concerns related to transitioning back into the workforce. And specifically, we'll give an overview of where to find the support, training, and rehabilitation services for you to keep a job while living with a spinal cord injury. All right. So my name is Mike Sanders, and I work for a nonprofit called NTI, where we help place Americans with disabilities and disabled veterans back in the workforce through our NTI at Home and Land to Job programs. And I've been there for about 6 years. I'm currently the Director of Marketing. However, I served so many other roles in the organization, such as recruiting, training, and in the call center to help people strategize through their workplace transition. Prior to this, I was the head of training for Canon North America, and I also worked with One Stop Career Centers to build their Back to Work program. So hopefully through my experience and the people I work with, we can help you through your transition as well. And as for the agenda, during this conversation, we're going to be discussing employment support systems, methods for choosing your employment network, strategies for your job search, how to keep a positive mindset, and also go over some of the resources available for you to take the next steps. So I know we won't be able to go over every single nuance during this high-level overview, but I hope to continue the conversation with you after this session and constantly update the resources section. I'm going to make that available for you at the end of this session. Okay. There are a few things I'd like for you to take away from this discussion. So for you to understand what the 5 types of employment services are and what are available to you during your job search. Also to determine how to research what an employment network is and how it's going to work right for you. Also, how to prepare for the interview process and develop your checklist of tools so that way you can succeed. And finally, how to set SMART goals so that you'll know how to work with an employment network, find the job that you're looking for, as well as build success once you're in the position itself. Okay, so transitioning after injury, it's difficult. Returning to work after a life-changing event is very intimidating. So depending on your injury, you may not think about returning to the workplace for a period of time. Most people think that I work with haven't been in the workplace for 5 to 6 years, and they finally reach a point where they can manage their disability and feel confident that they could return to the workforce. However, there are a lot of concerns coming back to the workforce because there's a lot of unknowns. And for yourself, you might be worried about losing your disability benefits, receiving appropriate accommodations, potentially being treated unfairly or equally in the workforce, or could you even do this? So going back to work, it's not for everyone because everyone has a different life situation. And you'll know if it's right for you. It's a lot to take in, but preparing and planning is crucial to a true successful outcome. You must have a realistic self-check when you're looking at your goals and getting back into the workplace. Is it in your best interest? So some of the most common questions I receive include, what's the impact on my benefits? Is this in the best interest for me? Do I have physical, mental stamina in order to be successful? And will going back to work prevent me from paying or my ongoing medical expenses? And from a social standpoint, do you think you'd be happier working again and showing what you could do in the workplace? Do you think that you would enjoy the interaction? Do you have the right education to complete your goals? So one person who works with me, he sustained an injury and didn't re-enter the workplace for about 4 years. And during that time, he studied his passion, which was data. And he's currently going back to school to keep his knowledge, skills, and abilities, not only for himself, but to keep up to pace with the people he's competing with. It's tough, not only because he's working part-time, but he's taking 3 classes. So leveraging his education, he sets targets for success, and he's well on his way of achieving his goals. So if you don't have the education or knowledge to achieve your goals, what can you do to close the gap? And that brings up the topic of assistance. Do you need educational assistance, financial assistance, or a computer to do your job? Do you need adaptive software or hardware to bridge that gap? Can this be even done before you get a job so that way you could just focus on bringing your knowledge, skills, and abilities to the job without distraction? And finally, we're going to set realistic goals. I see a lot of people who apply for positions who don't have the skill set to complete that task. So know yourself. If that isn't your strong suit, know how you'll compete with others in the same space. So one person I know who struggled after an injury to find work was guitarist Eric Koch of the rock group Portugal the Man. And you may have heard the band through their infamous song, Feel It Still. It's been on the radio, commercials, talk shows, the Grammys, the Billboard Top 100. You name it, it's been everywhere. So last year, I had the chance to interview him and the band to talk about disability and social justice. Eric wasn't always famous. He was a musician who worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. And when he was injured in a freak accident, it was tough for him to get back on track again. He ended up doing an endless series of odd jobs to survive and even worked the phones in a call center. He said during the interview that I had with him, "I wish everyone knew the resources like yours existed." Like Eric, quite a few people don't know about employment networks and need the guidance in order to get back on track again. So that way they don't feel like they're bouncing around to find that right fit. So in hindsight, Eric did really well for himself. But in the beginning, he could have narrowed down his sea of options as he returned back in the workplace, just with a little bit of guidance. And as for yourself, you could begin searching for your employment network, otherwise known as an EN, that's just right for you. So an employment network, what is it? It's an organization that could assist you with job assistance such as placement, training, and mentoring. In addition, if you currently receive benefits because of your disability, an employment network can also help you understand how your benefits may be affected if you start working. But there's a range of service providers. Returning to work after an injury or illness, it's not always easy, especially if you're dealing with disability or ongoing health challenges. So if you're between the ages of 18 to 64 and receive either SSI or SSDI, you're eligible for employment through the Social Security's Ticket to Work program. And that participation in the program is voluntary, but your ultimate objective should be to increase your earnings and achieve self-sufficiency. So these are the 5 resources that could help you as you search for a job following a disabling injury. Employment networks, as I just mentioned, an employment network, otherwise known as an EN, provides services that you need to help prepare for, find, and keep a job. However, no 2 of these ENs provide exactly the same services. So you want to be able to talk to a few organizations to learn about what support is available and how long you could receive it. You need to mention your career goals and find out how an EN could assist you in finding and keeping a job. Workforce employment networks, they're similar to other employment networks. However, these networks are part of a state's public workforce system. And as for state vocational rehabilitation agencies or VR agencies, well, they offer services for those who need education, rehabilitation, or intensive training before re-entering the workforce. Once your training is complete, that VR agency may also help you decide what type of job, find the job that you want, understand how your new job will impact your disability benefits that you receive. And then the fourth one, Work Incentive Planning Assistance or WIPA programs provide free benefits counseling to recipients of the Social Security disability benefits. These organizations, they have permission from the Social Security Administration to work directly with beneficiaries to ensure that they're able to make the best choices possible for their future. And then finally, protection and advocacy exists to help those on SSI or SSDI understand the conditions of employment, how employment will affect their benefits, as well as make informed choices to improve the quality of their lives. So some of the things I said, they interweave on top of each other, but like I said, every employment network offers very specific services for each individual out there. And depending on your needs, you may benefit from assistance from just one of these sources or several of them. Just make sure you explore all the resources available to you to maximize that effectiveness of your job search. And keep in mind that you can only use one employment network at a time. So then choosing your service provider. Picking an employment network, it's an intimidating process because they all provide different services. The right EN will provide you with the services you need to support your work goals. So talk to as many ENs as you'd like to find out what they have to offer and compare those services. The information you're going to gather, it's going to help you choose the right EN. So some of the questions you may ask the EN directly include, what types of services are available and how long can I receive support? Does that EN specialize in serving clients with a particular disability, skill set, or educational background? What are the types of skills that the staff have who are going to be working with you? Are direct placement services available? Can they provide references from other clients? Those are just a few. I'll provide more of those for you at the end in the resources section. So once you've found and researched an employment network that interests you, contact them, see if they could work with you. If the organization is unable to assist you, ask for a referral from another EN or employer resources. If they can work with you and you'd like to work with them, you could assign what's called a ticket to work to that employment network and start receiving job-related services such as employment coaching and resume writing help. You and that EN, you'll also develop an individual work plan outlining your goals and how you'll work together to achieve them. We're going to discuss the individual work plan in just a little bit. But if the EN you turn out, if the EN you select turns out not to be a good fit, you could ask that organization to unassign your ticket and reassign that ticket to another employment network. So when you have a disability, finding the right support could go a long way towards making that transition back to work as stress-free and successful as possible. The Employment Network Directory lists as many organizations that you could choose from, and once again, I'm going to provide that link to you at the end of this presentation. There's also a great worksheet that I'm going to share with you that you could use to determine what to look for in an EN. Just don't call around expecting them to spend the next hour answering questions for you. So most of the information surrounding these employment networks could be found online. Use that time wisely. Do a little bit of research online before calling and save the critical questions for when you do truly call up. All right, work incentives. They make it possible for you to explore work while still receiving benefits, and they're designed to help you succeed. So you may be able to help keep your medical benefits while you work. You have access to individualized support services. You could try to work with confidence knowing that you may be able to keep all of your benefits or some of your benefits during your transition period. So specifically, the trial works period, expedited reinstatement, and protection from medical continuing disability reviews help through your transition. Individuals receiving SSDI benefits from the Social Security Administration can try to return to the workforce immediately without losing benefits. That trial work period is designed to offer those receiving SSDI the ability to work while still collecting benefits. So it sounds pretty good. Your work period is exceeded only when you work 9 months or more within a 5-year period. And if you earn $880 or more in a month, it counts towards your 9 months total for that trial work period. I'm going to give you a link later on for this thing called the Red Book out there that explains this a little bit more in detail for you, so that way you could understand it and be able to absorb that information and see if this is right for you. As for expedited reimbursement, it's also available if your disability worsens. So some people who receive SSDI benefits, they can return to work successfully and no longer need to receive SSDI. And individuals who surpass that trial work period in substantial gainful activity, or SGA, eventually lose their benefits. And unfortunately, there's times when the employment can't be sustained. So if you are no longer to remain gainfully employed because of your disability and you previously received benefits, you have the right to request benefits to begin again without having to file a new application. So this allows you to take a chance of gainful employment while having SSDI as a backup if necessary. And finally, if you're in the Ticket to Work program, you will not have to go through a medical disability review based upon your ability to work. So they call this incentive the Protection from Medical Disability Reviews, or CDR. And if you receive benefits for 24 months or more, you'll also need a medical disability review, or you don't need a medical disability review. I apologize on that. If you feel like this is the right direction for you, let's focus on setting the goals for your job search. Okay. You need a plan, stay focused on your goal, but work within an aggressive time frame that works for you. Every individual is different, and returning to work is a huge step. If you take that step too soon, the outcome, it might not be what you envisioned. So there are two things that we're going to be talking about in this section regarding goal setting. One is through SMART goals. The other is prepping an individual work plan so you could leverage working with an employment network effectively. Christina Jackson, otherwise known as Miss Wheelchair California, came to NTI a few years back looking for work to subsidize her small business developing designer accessories for wheelchairs. She set her goals, knew what financial assistance was needed to start up her own company. Her knowledge of the industry she wanted to break into just didn't come from school, but from benchmarking and talking to experts in the industry. During that time, she knew her decisions, what her decisions would have on her benefits, and moved forward as an entrepreneur. In the end, not only did she successfully build her company, but she exceeded her goals by gaining a new platform to advocate about individuals with disabilities as well as entrepreneurship. So how can you set successful goals like Christina? SMART goals in your career search. Just like Christina, you're ready to go back to work and you have an idea of what you want to do. Now, all you need is a roadmap to get there. So when setting goals, it's important to set SMART goals. Your objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-focused. Specific career goals are detailed, so some examples include, I want to be a full-time, work-from-home customer service representative for a Fortune 500 company. Or I'm seeking a position as a retail sales associate within 3 months. Or even, my goal is to become a veterinary technician within a 4-year period. So they need to be measurable with established benchmarks, so that way you can ensure you're making progress towards your specific goal. Examples, they include planning on attending at least 2 job fairs this month or updating your resume this week. Those are examples of measurable actions. And they also need to be achievable. So something is achievable when it's within your reach. So obtaining an upper-level management position right out of college, it's not likely. But instead, you should set your sights on an entry-level position and plan on working your way up. Goals are realistic when you could achieve them within a reasonable amount of time. So your goals should also be related to what you want to accomplish personally and professionally. For instance, if you're interested in occupations such as computer programming that requires prior training, make it your goal to obtain the skills you need. You might decide within that next month you're going to need to enroll in a basic coding course. So your goals should be something you could accomplish within a certain time frame. When you complete an individual work plan for the Ticket to Work program, you'll be asked to list your long and short-term goals. If you want to get your high school diploma or GED, consider how much time it's going to take and set your goal accordingly. So after you've outlined your SMART goals, an employment network or vocational rehabilitation counselor can help put your plan into action. SMART goal setting gives you a clear idea of what you want to do and a way to track your process. You'll also know you're headed in the right direction. So I know I mentioned it a couple of different times, the individual work plan. When you find an employment network that's a good match, both of you, you and the EN, you need to agree to work together and stay aligned to your individual work plan, otherwise known as an IWP. So the IWP, it's an agreement that lists your employment goals, the services the EM will provide, and your responsibilities in the job search process. So when you're filling out an IWP with an EN that focuses on work incentives, you'll need to define your career goals. So don't wait until you register for the EN services. Get started ahead of time. It's going to help you understand what services you specifically need, as well as create a framework for success. So typically on an IWP, you'll be asked what your short-term goals are within the next 3 to 12 months and what your long-term goals are within the next 3 to 5 years. By doing that, you're going to get an idea of where you want to be and what you need to do to get there. So the goals, it should follow the SMART model that we just currently discussed. So you need to be as specific as possible when describing the type of position that you want. In Christina's case, an example of her short-term goal was, I want to be a full-time call center representative. Her long-term goal was starting up her own business. Also, within the Ticket to Work program, and the Social Security Administration provides work incentives to help you transition back to employment without losing that safety net. So one of these incentives, which I referred to before, was the trial work period. And during that trial work period, I emphasize you can continue to receive benefits for at least 9 months if you report your earnings and meet that eligibility criteria to be considered as an individual with a disability. So setting career goals and taking necessary steps to achieve them will help you get the most out of your employment support services. Now that you've chosen an employment network to set your goals, the next step is to start the job search. But how will your goals align with searching for your next position? The job search, it takes in time, dedication, commitment, and focus. And it's also a series of continuous improvement and learning from your mistakes. How can I make my resume better? You might ask yourself, I didn't get the last job that I interviewed. How could I have answered my questions more effectively? What should I bring with me the next time I go on an interview to showcase my skill set and match that job description? So let's take a look. So the job search requires prepping ahead of time to tackle both expected and unexpected problems. And regardless of if you have a disability or not, here are some of the things to consider. So since you've been out of the workplace for a duration of time, you may question your need for help. So help could come in the form of updating your resume. You may need to write one from scratch. It could also include help with the interview process, such as prepping your answers, practicing, picking the right attire, or even getting to the interview itself. So I've seen a few people come into interviews inappropriately dressed, come in for an hour late after the interview, ramble on and not let me get a question in, or gain any type of clarification whatsoever. And it leads me to believe they're not a fit for my organization. They're going to be difficult to work with in the future. So don't make those same mistakes. And as for the resume, you may want to consider hiring a resume writer or have a few people review what you've developed for guidance. And depending on the size of the business, an employer, they're going to sift through hundreds of resumes to find the best employees, so don't use cliches or buzzwords. They see them every single day. Just make sure that you include the key information to flush out your resume. So it's going to be essential to find a reputable writing company or even your employment network to do all that hard work with you or for you. And another consideration is how do you explain gaps in your resume due to a disability? So traditionally, chronological resumes align with your work history are used. However, there are functional resumes that focus on your knowledge, skills, and abilities. And if you have a significant if you have a significant gap, I think you should use both of them combined. And I'll provide a few samples for you, once again, the resources page at the end of this session. I'll also make sure that your social media and your email are up to date. So 83% of all hiring managers will Google your name and search your social media accounts associated with your name. In their eyes, what you put up on social media represents you. And that representation, if they hire you, is an extension of their own organization. So make sure that the comments and pictures that you don't want seen, that they're blocked out and your privacy settings are locked. As for an email, ensure you don't have an email name that's inappropriate. So for example, like if you had loveydovey@aol.com. If you have an email account like this, you may want to consider getting a secondary account that's a little bit more professional for your job search. So there's even some companies recently, I've come across it in articles, and I've heard a few people say this, that they won't even consider Yahoo or an AOL email address because the service is considered out of date. So typically your best bet is to go with a Gmail account. And what about your best skills? So find out about the tasks associated with the jobs. Read that job description and see if you're qualified to do it. Identifying limitations to your physical abilities before applying to a job can save everyone, including yourself, time and resources. So how much walking, standing, carrying, lifting, what is actually needed to do the job? Also consider how your medical condition affects your ability to handle larger objects, like climb stairs, perform other physical movements that you may require assistance with. And all those efforts related to your job search, they need to be organized in a spreadsheet. I set up one for you, which I'm going to provide, and you could use that as a template going on forward. It's exciting to transition back into the workforce by sending out resumes and preparing for interviews, but that excitement, it leads to a lot of disorganization, forgetting where you sent resumes, and if you spoke to someone who's a potential employer. So every time you email, snail mail, drop off a resume, keep track of it on a spreadsheet. Make sure you include the name, date, phone number of the business, anyone you spoke with, so it's really easy to get confused about where you submitted resumes. And especially if you submit dozens of resumes online each day, you're going to forget. Especially if they call you up, if they're interested in you, it's so embarrassing if an employer calls you and you can't even remember sending them a resume. So don't do anything like that. Make sure that you're organized. If everything goes appropriately, you're going to be on your way to the interview. So job interviewers tend to gauge 3 traits of an interviewee. So initiative, intelligence, and enthusiasm. So be ready with competent answers to open-ended questions like, if you were in this position, what would you do? How would you be able to handle a difficult worker? And I've had original answers ready that aren't generic and vague, but get to the point. If you could quantify it, even better. Think outside the box with these, with friends, and develop skills for demonstrating how you would assertively, not aggressively, come up with solutions to unforeseen problems. If you've had a gap of employment, like I said before, many of the people who come to us they haven't worked for 5 to 6 years. So how would you explain that? And what would you have been doing in the meantime to stay abreast in your field? So questions will come up regarding this. Just focus on your knowledge, skills, and abilities when crafting your answers, not the injury. Make sure you run it by others before interviewing. See what they think. Also, you may have questions asked of you directly about your disability that may not even be legal. Unfortunately, these situations still exist, but you really need to focus on what your goal is. One person is not representative of the entire company, and you need to turn the question on what you can do and how your skill set could get that job. Then it's up to you to make your decision. So let's discuss those major steps to prepare for the interview. Okay. One of the most nerve-wracking parts of landing a job is going through the interviewing process. So whether you're interviewing by phone, in person, here's some tips on having a successful interview. You need to research. So thanks to advances in technology, it's really simple to research the company that you're going to be interviewing with. So social media, the company's website, LinkedIn, are just a few places where you can research a company. Definitely do it. There's nothing worse for you not to have any idea on what the company does or what it's about. So also prepare yourself with comments or questions about the company. You could also line up an informational interview with someone who works at the company and holds the same position to which you're going to be applying to. So the more you know about the company, the more comfortable you're going to feel when interviewing it. And then skills. So your potential employer has certain needs to fill. It's essential that you completely comprehend the field to which you're applying to. If you haven't worked in that specific industry, you're going to need to convey how to transfer your knowledge into that industry. You also need to practice. Role-playing, along with recording and critiquing yourself, are great ways to practice answering difficult and common interview questions. So if you're interviewing by phone, you're going to need when it's appropriate to disclose your disability and discuss concerns about your skill set. The ADA, it prohibits employers from asking different questions that discriminate against your disability. But if you're asked one of these questions, answer the question by focusing on your knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then as for presenting, it's important to make a first impression, and you could do that by wearing the appropriate interview attire, making sure that if you have a wheelchair, it looks good. If you're on an interview via phone or Skype, dressing up for the interview, it's definitely going to help you feel more confident. Punctuality, it's critical. So make your transportation arrangements well ahead of time, or make sure that you have the right links, phone numbers in order to connect. So during that interview, present the prospective employer with a copy of your resume, cover letter, samples of your work, and once that interview is completed, make sure to send them an email or card thanking them for their time. I always find that so important out there. So deciding to begin a job search after being out of the workforce, it's daunting and exhilarating. A job search mindset, it not only involves staying positive and focused, but it also means understanding that there's going to be disappointments and setbacks. So everyone from people with college degrees or vocational certificates to people who have never worked or have disabilities, they're going to inevitably experience their ups and downs during their job search. So there are 6 must-have job search mindsets. And the first one is to follow a routine. So you need to treat your job search like a full-time job, not a part-time one, and establishing your daily routine of searching through job positions, reviewing businesses before applying, submitting resumes and constantly updating your resume. Work to keep motivated and focused on your goal, which is landing the kind of job that you know and you're going to enjoy and excel at. Secondly, don't set difficult goals. An example of setting a difficult goal, if not impossible, is to make a New Year's Eve resolution to lose 50 pounds in 60 days. Seriously? So someone who could afford a personal trainer, they may be capable of that, but avoid sabotaging yourself by writing down all of your goals. Yeah, all of them related to your job search, but reread them objectively and mark off goals that may interfere with keeping a positive mindset. For the third one, follow through your initiatives. After emailing or dropping off a resume, don't wait for them to call up you. Instead, inquire on the status of your resume a week after submitting it. So sometimes busy hiring managers, they need a little bit of a nudge to direct them to check out a certain resume, specifically yours. So following up on the application also means that you're still interested in the position. Also, ensure that you follow up with a thank you. Personally, I got 6 jobs myself, not all at the same time, but over my lifetime, because I sent everyone who was involved in the interview a handwritten letter thanking them for taking their time out of their busy schedules to interview me. And they said, you were the only one who did that. Number 4, stay positive and focused. So you may interview for multiple positions and not get a call for weeks. You need to stay focused and eventually something's going to break through. Stay engaged with your job search efforts because if you stray, you might not see something happen for months on end. So don't give up. Follow your goals, your strategic plan to make things work for you. You're going to find that next job. And number 5, celebrate. If you're notified by a business that you've received a resume, you need to celebrate. If you're able to meet a goal of networking with 5 people in a week, celebrate. If you're contacted by a business requesting an interview, definitely celebrate. So celebrating those small wins deserves recognition because it means you're making impressions. Enhancing your mindset, learning valuable skills during your job search. So you're moving forward. And number 6, ask for help when necessary. So don't be afraid to ask for assistance in your job search. Your family, your friends, your employment network, your one-stop career center, they're all there to help you succeed in finding your dream job. And also, focus on that goal. So you should focus on the goal of getting a job. Certain things are going to go through your mind during your job search that may dissuade you from thinking you could get a job. So when I was looking for a job, I had a lot of difficulty in a tough market, but I stayed close to my plan, and it took me about maybe 8 or 9 months to actually find a job. But now that I have one, I absolutely love what I do, and that I can help people, and that's what's important to me. So you're going to find a match that's the right fit for you. It just takes a lot of time, perseverance, and staying close to your strategic plan. So some of the things that are going to come up in your mind that question your ability to find a job, like will your disability interfere with you getting back to work? And you got to keep in mind that you have a trial work period where you could see if your disability could be managed. If not, you may want to consider an alternative scenario that's a better fit for you. And like I said, it took months of networking, sending out resumes, interviewing before I found the right fit for me. There were definitely ups and downs. But don't believe that you can't find a job. You can. Also, do your research regarding your benefits. Is going back to work going to mess up your benefits situation? Do a deep dive into this because it's not a right fit for everyone. It really depends on where you're at in your life and how your disability could be managed. So if you decide to go on forward with this, keep a strong mindset and stick to your game plan. You could do this, you could compete with others, and you must learn and iterate through the process. If a company says no to you, you need to move on forward. But seriously, you must reflect on yourself and your performance when trying to get the job with that company. Look at whether your resume and the way that you present yourself matches up with your knowledge, skills, and abilities for that company you think that you're a fit. So I went a little bit beyond the Call of Duty with this, and I set up some resources for you to take the next steps. Obviously, within the past 45 minutes or so, we weren't going to go over all the information that's critically necessary for you to succeed in the job search. So I highlighted a few things on a web page that are going to guide you in the future. This is going to be available to you after this session. So I'm going to keep on building on this page because there's always more information to add, and there's certain areas where I knew I wasn't going to have the time to fully cover. But it's a starting point. So also, there's questions that I didn't answer, so I'm going to follow up on those so that you can get the necessary information or the context necessary in order for you to succeed. So feel free to write to me through social media, my email, or just call up one of our solution advisors. They could steer you in the right direction. And that information, it can be found at, I actually went and got the domain name to make it a little bit easier for you. But if you went to transitionafterinjury.com, it should take you directly there. And it has all the links for the items I discussed earlier in this presentation. I also set up a group on Facebook to answer questions for you. I'll just go over to this slide really quick. But if you search on Facebook for the name of the seminar, you should be able to find it. So at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for any questions whatsoever and answer some of the questions that are within the chat box over here. And if not, we'll go to the next slide. You have my information here. And in addition, this webcast is going to be archived on the Reed Foundation website. And once again, I'd like to thank the Christopher and Dana Reed Foundation Paralysis Resource Center and the Administration for Community Living for having NTI here today. Let's see. So there are no questions in the chat box? All right, great. Okay. At some point during the presentation, please show us. Oh, sorry. Let me take a look. So Leah has a question here. How much resources are available for taking the next steps? Are applicable for those of us who have spent a long time beginning, establishing, sustaining their own businesses. There are employment networks out there that could help you out with that if you do have your own business in setting up entrepreneurial activities. I do know that one of our services, one of our programs, Land a Job, does have some of those elements available to it, but there are other employment networks that do focus on entrepreneurship, and it sounds like you are in that situation currently. But we could also follow up on that as well. There's a lot of individuals out there who do have that current situation. Over for the presentation from rehab. Okay. So Virginia wrote down, and I'll probably skip around on the different questions, but she wrote down, I work in a rehab setting and get several patients I work with are workers' compensation. We're not allowed to refer patients to these services. Any ideas for a therapist working with SCI patients? So this is what I would do, Virginia. If you would like them to look on their own for these services, and that's kind of what I recommended in here, is if you go to the website that I gave or the Ticket to Work website, if you look up Social Security Administration's Ticket to Work, there's a place where they could search for their own employment networks, and that's provided to them by the Social Security Administration. So you should be able to just send them there as a resource. And all of these employment networks are validated by the Social Security Administration, so they can look for the very specific things that they're looking for in order to help them succeed through their transition. Difficult when And let me know if that answers it for you, Virginia. All right, great. So Eileen wrote down, if I get a job and go off disability for a while and I need to go back on, how difficult to do that? Well, that's kind of what we were talking about. I'm just going to jump slides a little bit. And it's a little bit back here. So the expedited reinstatement. And essentially, if you come off disability and you decide it's not for you, it's not that much of a process to bounce back on, because you have that as an incentive for your program, and that's what's for you, because they don't want to see you. What I've noticed is they don't want to see you bail off of the Ticket to Work program. They want to give you a little bit of guidance going through it and see whether or not it's right for you. They're just not going to walk you off of a cliff. They'll give you a chance to say, okay, well, this isn't working out for me. Let's see if I could come on back onto this. There is paperwork that you're going to have to do with it. It will take a little bit of time, but it's something that is available to you. Okay, so Michael, I'm a manager of a contact center, and my positions are ideal for work-at-home scenarios for people with disabilities. But when people pop up, I never get a person with disability as applicants. Do you have any recommendations on marketing specifically to applicants with disabilities? Well, one, that's exactly what we do, Michael. But maybe we could talk offline on this one. There are groups out there where you could advertise on specific boards for advertising for individuals with disabilities. For example, one of the boards that we have is with a program that we have internally called Land a Job. It's a database of over 500,000 positions across the United States for individuals with disabilities. And there are other groups that are similar, that offer similar services to that, where you could actually post the positions, and people who have disabilities can apply to those. But I think that you're saying more is that you're advertising to get individuals with disabilities within your workplace, but the people who apply the positions don't have disabilities. Is that correct? No, true. Okay. So, for example, the one board that I just mentioned with Land a Job, the only people who could get into it are on SSI or SSDI, so they are all individuals with disabilities, verified disabilities. There are other groups out there where where the same situation applies, and we could talk about that further offline too. And Seth is right. So I'm looking up at the questions. Seth said that VR focuses on entrepreneurs too. That is correct. Okay. Can you talk about business incentives? Renita, what I'm going to do on that one, because that one's a whole nother bear to talk about the incentives for employers who hire individuals with disabilities. What I'm going to do, if you want to, feel free to contact me afterwards, and we could talk about the different financial aspects of hiring individuals with disabilities, as well as what we've experienced with our clients in trying to get individuals with disabilities back into the workplace and what they've experienced on their end. Would that be okay? Because I do feel like it would get off track a little bit. Okay. All right. 36-month period. Falls below SGA. Reapply, no questions asked. Kick in. 5, 6. That's it. Yeah. And Susan, you're all right on that. This is kind of like a high-level overview of the whole entire thing. One of the things I would recommend is taking a look at the Red Book on the Ticket to Work site to reinforce what you're saying there. So that is some of the information that I provide in, I'll just jump to the end, within this website. So I do give a little bit more information on this. So put the link and it cannot be found. And also too, for Rosemary's question, if you, one of the things I did notice when I forwarded it on over is it says the page cannot be found, and then all of a sudden, like 10 seconds later, it opens it up, or maybe like 15 seconds later. You're also going to receive the link within the postmortem of this seminar, so you'll be able to access it at that point too. We'll give you that information. All right. So you have, I'm just taking a look up on the chat room. Which via your email. Okay. And so I'm going to leave this link up there so that way you can get in contact with me if you have any further questions. Career interest tools that you recommend. Oh, I also noticed on the other tab too that Susan also wrote down, are there any skills and career interest tools that you would recommend? Within that web page that I provided to you, there's a link of a ton of resources that I accumulated since we started talking about this project with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation that you could leverage out there and use. And I developed a couple of different worksheets on how to work with your SMART goals, how to work with your career search efforts, as well as how to map that out there. And that sounds good, Ronita. And it will be available via email for review. So thank you so much. Is there any more questions out there? And also, too, one of the things I did want to mention that within the registration, there are a few questions that people wrote in and wanted to know specifically about. Some of them went off the course of the conversation, but I will spend some time, circle back with the people that I work with and talk to the experts and find out exactly the answers to those questions and be able to provide those to you. So I just want to make sure I address that as well. Great. Hey, thank you, Angela. Volunteer job with stipend for transportation. Eileen, I'm going to have to double check on that one for you. Oh, so the spreadsheet, so Rosemary, you were looking for the spreadsheet to organize your job search, is that correct? Yes. Okay. So the jobs sheet is going to be, let me just, Just going to go to that website really quick. And there is a link on that page that is the key elements to prepare you for the job search. And underneath of there, you are going to find maybe about 3/4 of the way down a topic that says, or a subheading that says organization. And here is the website again. But you're going to find on there a topic called organization, and there's a spreadsheet that's in there that you could download, and you can manipulate the way that you want to in order to succeed with it. All right. And Eileen, I'm going to follow up with you on that question after I run it by a couple of people. I just want to verify. All right. What other questions do you guys have? And Leo, yeah, it's going to take some time to formulate. Job search process, going through it literally is a full-time job. And going through, structuring out how you're going to attack it is key to being successful with it and getting exactly what you need. Some people out there, they may be able to get a job right off the bat because of their background, or they may have been working the whole entire period of time. And other people, they may say, okay, well, I want to get the job that I want exactly this time. And that's what I'm trying to do, is provide the tools. Yeah. All right, great. Do we have a list of work-at-home jobs for individuals with disabilities? It's interesting. We have a couple of different, internally we have a couple of different websites. That's what NTI does focus on, is work-at-home jobs. And we have specific clients that we work for, but different ENs have other clients that they work for. There are some websites out there that are focused on work-at-home positions, and we're currently in the process of trying to get an aggregate of all those as an additional resource for everyone out there. Okay. Okay. Hey, thanks, Leo. So Leo just wrote down, it's very obvious you're dedicated to this. Yeah, I've been doing this for about 25 years now. I love doing it. I love sitting down and helping out people and trying to make a difference in their lives. It's something that rings very dear to me. So thank you so much for listening and being a part of this, and I hope that I can help out a few of you with trying to move on forward. Yeah, absolutely, Lorianne. So definitely keep in contact with me, and we could discuss that. We could definitely discuss that, and I could possibly help you out along this way. All right. Hey, no problem, Dawn. No problem. Thank you, Sarah. Hey. All right, great. Any last questions before we wrap up? Hey, thank you, Jackie. And everybody, if there's something out there that you want in addition to this if you're looking for something specific. There were a few requests that kind of deviated off of this presentation that were requested out there. I'm more happy to give you more information on that. And I think that, yeah, so it's a closed group right now, Ronita, but you could feel free to ask questions in there. And I have a few people who are moderating that as well, who are experts in the field. I will take a look at it, Leo. Thanks. All right. Okay, so I guess that wraps it up. Thanks again for having me be a part of this, and I really appreciate the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation and the Administration for Community Learning for having me here today. Thank you.
Hi, this is Julie. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate you being on, and thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you. You too.
And this concludes today's call. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect.